This episode of Family Trips is brought to you by the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder with 7 drive modes. The Pathfinder is built for even the most epic journeys. Learn more at nissanusa.com.
Here we go.
Hey, Pashi.
Hey, Sufi.
Can we tease the trip you're about to take?
It's a bit crazy. So I've got a friend who works with a celebrity.
Okay.
And this celebrity was about to take a trip
As celebrities do.
to go to Stockholm and had reserved this very nice 3-bedroom penthouse in Stockholm, Sweden. And then, as celebrities also do, she booked a job.
Sure.
And can't go, can't cancel. And so offered the place up to my friend. And my friend invited another friend of hers, and I was out to lunch with that friend over the weekend. And now, so I'm going to go to Oslo tomorrow night, 2 nights in Oslo, and then Stockholm for 5 nights.
It's amazing.
And then home. And it just sort of fell into my lap. And it's one of these things where opportunity's knocking and I'm answering the door.
The door, yeah. And, for us, obviously, with a podcast like this, anytime one of us can get a trip in there, real important. Real important, because now you can come and report back. So,
yeah. I feel like also with our shout outs to get family trip stories from our listeners and questions, I don't know if we'll ever veer into this territory or not, but I do feel like friends are sort of become your chosen family in a lot of cases. And I'm flying and I'm traveling with people who are very near and dear to me. So they are friends, but they feel like family. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity.
I feel like Mr. Black and White got a little gray area on what counts as a family trip all of a sudden. Can I tell you that I just was talking to a mom at one of the kids' schools, and she's a fan of family trips, and she appreciated how you kept everything on track.
I appreciate that she told you, because I feel like sometimes you're like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, she told me, and you know what? I took it on the chin. I just... I know when I lose a point.
I was just going to say, I have bought, because I get particularly prickly when Lorne Michaels stuff comes up.
Yeah, I think everybody who's listened knows that.
Yeah, because also it's not like he's like the king of travel or whatever, but
sure,
everyone
he does travel very well.
Yeah, sure, but he's also
yeah. I get it. I take the point.
Yeah.
Right.
So I have bought this.
Oh, that's real irritating. Josh is holding up one of those buttons that you hit. And so now you're going to button me and my fellow SNL alums when we mention Lorne Michaels?
Yeah.
Wait, I didn't hear anything. Did it make a noise?
Yeah, you're going to get it on my end. It's like, I don't know, sometimes these mics don't pick up.
What did it say? Was it just a buzz?
Yeah, it goes, eh.
Can you record? Is it one of those ones where you can record it?
And say, no more Lorne stories.
Yeah, that's what I would do. Like, no.
Here.
Yeah, I still don't hear it. All right, our listeners will hear it. Maybe it's just that my ears can't hear any shade about Lorne Michaels, the greatest man I've ever met. Oh, sweet Lorne. I'm sorry about my brother, sweet Lorne.
Look, I think he's great too. I just don't know that everyone listening is like, oh yeah, give me some of that.
Yeah,
Lorne,
yeah.
honey.
I get it. That's very fair. So I also want to say, you were asking if I ran the Stockholm Marathon. Is that what you just said?
No, but we can.
Great.
We can talk.
So
about
I mean,
it.
sure. It's a really sad story about an athletic achievement that was went off track. I did train to run the Stockholm Marathon in summer of 2015, and I had IT band issues. I overtrained. I don't want to brag on the podcast, but I was running like 150 miles a month. That's too many miles for a dude my age at the time. And so I had IT band issues, and then I took a month off before the race, and then I tried to do it, and I made it like 10 miles before my knee buckled, and I had to stop the race. And it's real sad. A couple things that were sad. One, I kind of liked the idea of running the Stockholm Marathon because I liked the anonymity. Right before my knee buckled, or I should say right after it buckled, I was sort of like leaning against a car, and a little Swedish kid walked by and goes, "Oh, hello, Seth Meyers." And I was like, "Oh, son of a gun." I didn't need that. And then you have to like walk home during an active marathon, and that's not great either.
Yeah, because you probably look hobbled.
And you also look like somebody who was supposed to be in the marathon.
Were you still wearing your number?
Yeah. Or maybe I took it, but still, you know what I mean? Like, you look like a dude who was just ran 10 miles, and people are like, oh, did you not know there was also a marathon? You should have done that. And then I remember, but we did have Swedish meatballs for dinner that night, which I know is very on the nose, but.
Yeah. Mom and Dad were there for that.
Mom and Dad came out, which was lovely. Yeah. Mom and Dad came out. Alexi came out. My sister-in-law, Ariel, came out because I invited her. I said, it's for you. I don't want people to think this is because you and my wife have a codependent relationship and you have to go the same places all the time. This is because I want you there to support me.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it is
I remember you ran the Helsinki Marathon.
I did.
In Finland and finished. I was there for that one. And I've seen you run a couple marathons.
Good man. Now, for our listeners, we should know that's the sum of them. It makes it seem like now they're like, how many are there? There's the 2 Josh saw, and then the 1 I didn't finish. Josh is kind of my rabbit's foot. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm your lucky charm. And at the Helsinki Marathon, like there's always there's like, they might pass you a cup of Gatorade or water. Yep. There's like little stations to keep you going. And I remember at the Helsinki Marathon, they were handing out pickles. Yeah. Because pickles got that salt.
Yeah, it was fun to.
So you can maintain.
It's like the first pickle station. You like grab a pickle. You're like running so fast, it falls out of your hand. You're like, I don't have time to go back for the pickle, and you just keep running. And then like late in the race, you stop and like have a conversation with the pickle person. You're sort of like, I kind of feel like I'm cramping everywhere. Like, do you have a good pickle for that? You do a pickle tasting.
If all those initial runners are dropping pickles, you run a real danger of a pickle pileup.
Yeah, you don't want a pickle pileup. I will say Helsinki, you were there, Colin Jost was there, Andy Samberg was there. And at one point you ran alongside me.
Yeah.
For maybe a block.
Yeah, we got winded. Yeah, you guys, pretty fast.
You were running with me, and then I remember just Andy after the fact saying he thought he was going to throw up. Because I wasn't sprinting, obviously. I was running a marathon pace.
Yeah.
In Jost's book, which is a wonderful book called A Very Punchable Face, Jost actually prints my marathon time and where I finished, which was like 2000th. It was a very mean. It was a very mean move by.
Did he go thinking that maybe you were going to win it?
No, he was just after the fact. That would be a funny thing to say, like, look how good he did. And it was like, not that great.
Yeah. Well, making his face all the more punchable.
Exactly. That's what he asked for.
Our good friend Colin Jost.
We also, one time we were in Sweden and had the best brunch of our lives.
101 item brunch at the hotel.
Can't remember the name of the hotel, but it was, I remember we walked in to check in and there was a sign saying we have a 101 item brunch. And it was everything you want it to be.
Yeah. And it was every morning till like 2 p.m.
It was nice and late. That's right.
Yeah. And so, we would go out. We would get up late and we'd go down. I mean, for the 101 items, we probably leaned on the meatballs more than
we did have. Now this will be your first return to the nation of meatballs post veganism.
Yeah.
Do we think that in this day and age they've got good, I don't know, like non-meat meatballs?
Probably not. I mean, I'll also say that I went to a wedding in Sweden, in Gothenburg, a few years ago, and we were out with our Swedish friends, and I was like, hey, can we get some Swedish meatballs? And he's like, yeah, it's like a kid's menu item, but we can get it. I don't think the Swedes eat Swedish meatballs as much as we think they do.
Yeah, they should.
They totally should.
It's dumb. It'd be like if I was like, just because I lived in America, I wouldn't eat chicken fingers, which I think we all know I do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Love
That's
those
a burn.
fingers.
That's a burn when that's only on the kids' menu and I have to convince the kids to get them. You guys like them.
Yeah, but then they can have your, onion soup.
Right. All right. Well, you have a wonderful trip. That's very exciting that you get to go back to Scandinavia. I'm very jealous that you get to take that trip.
Yeah. I'm lucky, and I know I'm lucky.
Hey, our next guest talked about her hometown in a way that maybe more than any guest we've ever had has made me want to visit it.
100%. And this place was not on my radar.
Exactly.
And now it is like, if I had a map that I was putting push pins in, I would put a push pin in this town.
She's a wonderful comedian. She's also a podcaster. She's also a writer. She's Tig Notaro, and we do hope you enjoy her right after you enjoy Jeff Tweedy.
Family trips with the Myers brothers. Family trips with the Myers brothers. Here we go.
How are you, Tig?
I'm doing well. How are you, Seth? It's been a long, long time.
I feel like it's been a million years. Do you remember which college we did stand-up together at?
No, I don't.
I do. I do. I guess it resonated far more with me.
It's an important memory to have.
Do you even remember the state?
Do you
No.
remember that it happened?
I know it happened.
Okay.
And I remember that actually, this is how long ago it was. My first episode of the Sarah Silverman program was premiering that night. That didn't we go to a gig and it was canceled and then we had to fly?
No, it was University of Northern Iowa is what I want to say. But I do remember we had to take a puddle jumper to, I remember it was rare that I flew with you because we both had to go back to a bigger airport before you went somewhere and I went somewhere. But we sat on a very small puddle jumper, and my memory of it, I don't know if you remember this, I do feel as though I've gone on a road trip with you because you had no interest in small talk. You immediately just got into my life with me in a way that was really helpful. You kind of sussed out that I was dating somebody that I shouldn't be dating before we even left Iowa.
Well, I do remember that. And I felt like maybe I had crossed a line, but
no, it was great.
I figured I might not see you again for another 20 years. And I was
and
right.
You didn't, but you had a massive effect on my life. So I'm really looking forward to this next. Hopefully this hour.
I feel like we were also scheduled to perform someplace, and then there was a weather situation.
Yeah.
That was when the very first episode that I was on Sarah Silverman was airing.
Gotcha.
And then it got canceled and we got rescheduled.
Yeah. We did. I guess it was, I do remember it very fondly. Now, do you ever see my brother? Do you guys ever run into each other?
I feel like the first time and only time I met you, unless I have a bad memory, obviously. I mean,
so do I. So let's see if we have this. I've got one in mind.
I only have one memory of you where we interacted, and that was we did a vegan benefit together.
We did. There was a vegan comedy show at Dynasty Typewriter in Los Angeles, a great little theater.
Yeah.
And Mom and Dad were in town, and I was like, hey, I got asked to do this thing, and Tig's headlining, and we went down, and it was it was like at 3 p.m. It was a great time.
Well, it was a great time, and you might have been gone when I performed, but what ended up happening at that show, which for some reason I remember more than I remember my time with Seth, but I was doing my show. Well, I had told my wife, I said, because it's a matinee show, should we bring Max and Finn, our, at the time, I think 6-year-old sons? They had never seen me do stand-up. And so it felt like a perfect opportunity. So we brought them, and I did not account for my sons heckling me.
It was great. I was there. I was in the audience for your set.
Were?
Yeah. And
Okay,
your sons seemed fascinated. And then afterwards, then there was like a little green room, and it was very busy because there were a lot of people in that show. And then you're there and Stephanie and your two adorable and very well-mannered sons, I will say.
Well, thanks. Well-mannered after they heckled me in front of, I truly was like, oh, right. Of course this is happening. Why would this not happen?
Right. They feel like, in the same way, I feel like our mother was our French teacher. And I feel like felt like we had more license to sort of interact with the teacher in ways that you wouldn't interact with a teacher because she was our mother.
Yeah.
And she had like a drawer that had candy in it that you could win based on like doing well on a quiz or whatever. But I had no compunction about going up and just grabbing a piece of candy whenever I wanted because that was my mom's candy. So in effect, that was my candy.
Well, compunction is a really good word.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me that the reason your kids hadn't seen you doing stand-up yet is that it was too late at night and not that they just might be too young for stand-up. Like you jumped at your first matinee gig to bring 6-year-olds to stand-up.
But they cuss. Like there's nothing that they, you know what I mean? Like they hang around. My comedian friends come over. My wife doesn't edit herself with anything she says. So it's really not an issue, but it was just ridiculous because it stunned me because the heckling was very age appropriate heckling because my son Max was like, not,
Yeah,
the old not.
So, and I will say, like, there's no scoring when you put down a heckler that is your own child. There's never, you're not going to be like, oh, Tig owned them.
Yeah. It's not going to go viral with me saying, you're going to go to bed early.
They also, because that was a vegan fundraiser, some vegan restaurant, I forget which it was, but had like sponsored it and sent food over for all the performers. And I don't think it was necessarily like a flex on your part, but you weren't there early to have food because also you had your children and your wife. So you showed up and you're the headliner. Makes sense. And then afterwards, they were like, oh, here's your food. But we were in a tiny little green room with like 15 people. And you were like, I think I'm going to eat this later. So I'm not just eating on my lap with all of you watching me eat this sandwich. You're like, I appreciate it. I will take it with me. Thank you very much.
It was a flex, by the way, for me to show up. Mm-hmm. It was a flex to show up for my set for a vegan matinee comedy show.
Yeah.
Now, is the idea, is this another thing that is health-based, is that the vegans have decided that also it's better to do stand-up in the afternoon just to get a good night's sleep?
Yeah.
That we've also kind of overlooked the fact that it's just basically unhealthy to be up as late as we are doing stand-up on a normal
And it's
night.
also very blue zone of my family because we travel together to the show. We enjoy the show together. We eat, plant-based, it's classic us.
Do you travel a lot with the boys?
No, we travel a lot as a family, but no, I don't bring them to, like, everybody, how, I don't know if you've experienced this, but strangers that don't know you chiming in and writing you and telling you how to live your life. People have done this to me, saying that I work too much and that my kids should have more time with me. And just to set the record straight, I do work a decent amount, but my family is my kids, if you didn't know that Stephanie and I were in entertainment, our kids have the most normal, structured, family-oriented life that I can't even express. So I just want to put that out there to all the strangers that have yelled at me for working too much and not spending enough time with my family. We spend so much time together, but I just don't bring them on set, or I only brought them to one show. In fact, anytime I pop up on the TV, they call me Mayor, but when they see me on TV, they scroll past and they say, there's Tig Notaro. There's Tig Notaro.
And now we're going to take a quick break to hear from one of our sponsors. This episode of Family Trips is supported by the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder. Hey, Pashi.
Yeah, Sufi.
From muddy jungle paths and snowy trails to rolling sand dunes, the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder has the capability to take you to some of the most epic destinations on Earth.
Oh man, we are excited to once again partner with Nissan because, as our listeners know, this podcast, Family Trips, is occasionally a podcast about trips and about the joy of having adventures and exploring new places, and making memories.
And if you're one of our listeners who doesn't know the podcast is called that, what is the holdup? There's no better vehicle for chasing bigger, better, more exciting adventures than the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder with 7 drive modes. The Pathfinder's available intelligent 4-wheel drive is built for even the most epic journeys.
This thing can tow. A Nissan Pathfinder can tow, Soof, so you can bring the fun with you.
Yeah. How many pounds would you say?
6,000.
Oh boy, that's a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun to tow. Nissan also knows it's not just about where you go in a Pathfinder. The real fun comes from getting there.
Ooh, now that is well said, Sufi.
Thank you.
Whether getting there is a new physical place or just the end of an amazing story told by one of our guests.
That's why we're excited to partner with Nissan to celebrate adventures everywhere.
So thanks again to Nissan for supporting Family Trips and for the reminder to chase bigger, better, more exciting adventures. And enjoy the ride along the way. Learn more at nissanusa.com.
Intelligent 4-wheel drive cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions. Towing capacity varies by configuration. See Nissan Towing Guide and Owner's Manual for additional information. Always secure cargo. Family Trips is supported by DeleteMe. Hey, Posh.
Yasuf.
You know that identity theft is sort of a very serious thing.
Yeah, people that have their identity stolen, it takes so much of your life to try and get your own identity back, which seems crazy, but it happens all the time.
And you know who I'm most afraid will steal my identity?
Who's that?
You. Because we have the same voices, so I feel like right off the bat, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And while I love and respect you, and obviously you're my best friend, I do like something backing up, just in case you choose the dark side. And that's why I like DeleteMe, because it's a subscription service that removes your personal info from the largest people search databases on the web, and in the process helps prevent potential ID theft, doxing, and phishing scams.
DeleteMe isn't just a one-time service. DeleteMe is always working for you, constantly monitoring and removing the personal information you don't want on the internet. And as a sort of real thing here, Seth, my last report on DeleteMe, 2,747 listings were reviewed. 122 total data brokers were reviewed. They scrubbed just so much of my information from the web, and it gives me some real peace of mind.
You love a good scrubbing, web or otherwise.
I love a scrubbing. Yeah.
Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for DeleteMe now at a special discount for our listeners. Today, get 20% off your DeleteMe plan when you go to join DeleteMe.com/trips and use promo code TRIPS at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to join DeleteMe.com/trips and enter code TRIPS at checkout. JOINDELETEME.com/trips.
Here we go.
So you grew up, you were born in Mississippi and then moved to Houston when you were pretty young, correct? Or just outside of Houston?
Yes, that is.
And one sibling, yeah?
No, my father was a little busy on the side.
Okay.
I have a brother I was raised with, and then my father had, he and my mother split, and he had a bunch of other
Extras.
children. Mhm.
Yeah.
When you say a bunch of, is the number just sort of kind of too large, or is it just sort of like maybe unclear?
No, I mean, I wonder sometimes, but I think there's 5 of us.
Okay.
Yeah. My father married somebody that was not maybe the nicest person.
Sure.
So there was a lot of stuff there. And so I was kind of selective with how and when I saw my father. And then I met my half brother just as my father was dying. Like when my father was dying, I went out to say goodbye and met my half brother.
Huh. How old was he then? How old was your half brother when you met him?
He was 19.
Wow.
And I was, I think, 44, something like that.
Was that a surreal moment?
Yes. it was. Actually, what was more surreal was the time that I was performing in Virginia, and my father had moved from Mississippi to Maryland, and I had a show in Virginia somewhere and at a club, and between the early and late show, I was walking, I don't know where, but I saw this guy leaning against a wall, and I thought, that's weird. That guy looks like my father, and it was. And so he had seen the early show. He wanted to stick around for the late show, and he had brought one of my sisters, and so I was in between the early and late show, hanging out with them, while people were coming up asking me to autograph things, which was weird, to sign his last name in front of him. And then it was so weird. And I couldn't do anything to convince him that I wasn't a major star. He thought I was the biggest star in the world, and he thought I was being really modest. And it was so embarrassing because I was just like, no, this place is sold out because of Christmas parties. But then he stayed at a motel nearby, and then he asked me to write my brother a letter in my father's car in front of my father. So that was more uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was a long way to go.
I find anytime you're writing anything and someone's watching you write it, it's very disconcerting.
Yeah.
Well, it was. I was like, "Hi."
Yeah, I mean that has so many levels of disconcerting to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, writing in a car. That's always feels like something's gone wrong when you're writing in a car. There's a lot. Yeah, there was lots to unpack there.
We weren't driving. We were just in a parking lot.
Also weird, though.
Yeah. Even weirder. When he was saying goodbye to me and driving off, he drove a van. Actually, of course he did. He put it in reverse, and he came back as I was waving, and he said, "Oh, can I take some pictures of you?" And I was like, "Sure." So I'm standing in a parking lot as he took some pictures of me in a disposable camera.
Did he get out of the van to take the pictures, or was it through the window?
It was through the window. And then he said, would you mind getting back into the van and writing a letter to your brother? And I was like, sure. So I did. And I didn't know, what to say, because obviously my father was going to read it. I didn't know if I should go into, hey, here's some issues to flag, but my father meant well. He was just a complicated person.
Yeah. Do you think, not to put you in his head, do you think when he drove off with his, disposable full of pictures and a freshly written letter, do you think he thought, I think that went good?
Yeah.
I think I got a lot out of that. I'm going to come back with all this bounty.
Yeah, and the family is going to be happily together forever.
I think this letter is going to be the bridge.
Yeah. Bridge the gaps.
Were you close with your full brother?
My full brother, yes. We certainly had our ups and downs over the years, and he made really good grades and was on sports teams, and had a girlfriend, and I was like rock and roll, and I smoked, and I failed 3 grades and dropped out of high school and have a 7th grade education. And so I was just like not the coolest sister to have it when he was shining, I think,
Yeah. Did he ever talk to you and say like, hey, you got to get on the straight and narrow, Tig?
No, he just didn't talk to me. I think he just kind of thought I was a loser for a while, but we're definitely close. I feel lucky that having the same life in childhood, that I don't ever share a story or feeling and have him say, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
There's not ever anything at all that I say that he's like, that didn't happen. He's not like my son. That's like, not.
Also, not to bring it back to our mother again, but our mother still drops the not regularly. It's
cool.
a bit that she's holding on to from her teaching days. Like whenever it popped, she's like, that one's good, and I'm sticking with it.
I think it was just while there was like a cultural moment where she absorbed all culture through her teenage boys. And so like she still uses dis with a lot of freely uses dis.
Yeah, she'll tell our father to step off.
Yeah,
she'll say, just step off, big boy.
Oh my God. Where does she live?
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire.
Bedford.
She lives in New Hampshire, but her heart is in 1990s Yo MTV Raps episodes.
I knew you were from Bedford through Sarah.
Yes.
I didn't realize that your mother was still speaking like that. Did she say,
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't very like Yo MTV Raps, but did she say happy camper and stuff like that?
No.
Oh, she's too cool for that.
She's too cool for happy.
Yeah.
Your stepfather came into your life when you were fairly young.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was sort of the four of you. Do you feel like you were a tight foursome with your mom and your stepdad and your brother? No.
No,
does not
sir.
sound like a no. Okay.
No, I mean, we lived in Mississippi, and my stepfather was from New York, and he was living in New Orleans, which is right near my hometown in Mississippi. And he was set up on a date with my mother, and then he moved us to Texas, and it just felt like I'm very thankful for my life, every good and bad thing, but I think that it just kind of felt like this doesn't feel quite right. You know, there was a lot of that. Our town was very quaint and in Mississippi, and very beautiful, and then we were just like dropped off in the middle of Texas, you know.
And how old were you then when the move happened?
Like 5 or so.
Yeah. But you have memories of the when you were in Houston, you did remember Mississippi fondly?
Oh yeah. And that's where I would go on most vacations, because my stepfather was very buttoned up and rigid, and my mother was a very free-spirited, artistic, funny person. And so there was just again, I'm grateful that I have both influences in my life. But it was not a match, I don't think.
Was Houston like a Houston suburb?
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, it became a suburb vibe, whereas when we moved there, it was a lot of like cow pastures and not much going on. One, a street where it's like one direction, one way, one the other.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I don't even recognize the area. It's so overdeveloped.
And so when you would go back and visit Mississippi, who would go on that trip? Was it all four of you, or would your mom just take you and your brother back?
My stepfather and he would do it by himself, or he and my mother would drive us to New Orleans. My grandmother lived in the Garden District in New Orleans. And so our first stop was to go there and visit her. And she lived in this apartment next to, are you familiar with the Pontchartrain Hotel on St. Charles?
Not really. No, I mean, yeah, I know the words, I know the names, but
yeah. The Pontchartrain Hotel is where a streetcar named Desire was supposedly written, and it just is a very famous hotel. But my grandmother lived right next door to the Pontchartrain, and she had a standing dinner reservation there every night. So we essentially got dropped off in New Orleans, sat in our grandmother's apartment, and breathed in so many cigarettes I can't even express.
What did she smoke? Do you remember her brand?
What did she smoke? I mean, it was no different from my house. My mother smoked filterless Pall Mall.
Okay.
I don't really remember. That's a good question. My brother would remember.
Yeah.
But that was our first stop. was New Orleans, and then we would get dropped off in Mississippi in my town, Pass Christian, which is
just dropped off to your own devices. Two kids just go.
No, we were dropped off at our aunt and uncle's house, which was just a blast, a real free for all. They had 4 kids, and they were 4 boys that were kind of like older brothers to us. We spent all of our summers and everything out there.
So there was a great anticipation annually about the idea of going back to Mississippi?
Oh yeah. And I think we enjoyed visiting our grandmother too. It was just, when you think back, like, what were we doing? Like, we were in her apartment for like a week, just smoking, and then went to Mississippi. But yeah, there was so much to do as kids, in Mississippi. It was just like, you could run anywhere, go anywhere. The beach was there. Everybody knew everybody, kind of vibe, fishing. And
what's the Mississippi beach vibe?
Very lazy and quiet. In fact, when I was an adult and went out to a California beach, I almost had a stroke, because I didn't even understand. You couldn't find parking. It was just endless, like parking lots that were crammed, and people parking along the boardwalk. Just I didn't understand and then bodies and bodies and bodies next to each other. Whereas in Mississippi, you walk, or you just pull up. My cousin was married to this guy who had never been out of Mississippi or on a plane, and we were asking him when he went to New York what he thought, and he said, I couldn't believe, there's no place to park my truck. Like, if I lived out there, there's no place to park my truck. And that was his big takeaway, because what my kids love so much when we go back to Mississippi is that people just pull up and park on lawns,
Yeah.
Right.
You just pull over and you park on the sidewalk. I mean, it's nothing weird, or you just leave your car running, you leave the keys. In fact, when Stephanie and I first got together, I was filming my show, One Mississippi, in New Orleans at the time. And she was hanging out in Mississippi with my family. And I said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And she said, "Oh, I'm doing this or that." And I said, "Well, how are you getting around?" And she said, "Oh, I'm driving Uncle Mike's car." And I said, "You are?" And she was like, "Yeah." And I said, "Do you know who Uncle Mike is?" And she was like, "No." And I said, "He is Rory's brother who died about a decade ago. And the family has just kept Uncle Mike's car and uses it for when people come in town. And you can just park Uncle Mike's car," because she had gotten Uncle Mike's car, which was parked at the tennis courts. So she was dropped off there to get Uncle Mike's car, but she was just like, "Oh yeah, I'm just driving around and borrowing Uncle Mike's car." I'm like, that guy is so dead.
We do a lot of beach stuff in the summer. The anxiety about parking.
Mm-hmm.
You can't relax enough at the beach to get over what you've done to yourself for the parking element of it. It's a disaster.
It is not the case. We got married. Stephanie and I got married on the beach in my hometown. And my cousin who organized it, he was like, "Well, I do want to let you know, we have it reserved, but there is a fee for the permit, but I covered it. Don't worry about it." And Stephanie was like, "Well, how much was it?" "Well, it was $5, but my treat."
Did you have a lot of people from LA come out to Mississippi for your wedding?
Yes, there were so many people from LA and New York that came out, and they were just like, "Oh my God, I got to see what a small town Mississippi gay wedding looks like." And I mean, it was so magical. I was like, I think 400 people came to our wedding.
Wow.
That's unbelievable.
It was massive. And got married on the beach, and my cousin's the mayor, and the street was shut down, so everyone could cross over the street to go to my other cousin's house for the reception. And my other cousin married us. These are the guys that are like older brothers to us.
Right. This is Jackson, Mississippi? Is it Jackson?
No, Jackson is where I was born. And then we moved down to Pass Christian, Mississippi. It's Pass Christian, and it's the Cajun pronunciation of Christian.
Okay.
And now, where do 400 people stay when they come to a wedding in Pass Christian?
A lot of people stay. Some people got Airbnbs. There's a casino. There are casinos in other towns and areas. It's near Biloxi, which is very heavy gambling areas. So yeah, a lot of that. But I'm telling you, it was a blast. That wedding was a blast.
Oh, that's
And do you feel like the people are coastal elites who came down, got everything they bargained for and more? Do you think they were all just, this is everything I possibly could have wanted from my Mississippi wedding?
I think it was more. And what's funny is when you fly into my town, you go to New Orleans, and then you drive, it's a little under an hour east of New Orleans. And there's always the vibe of, well, we're going to stay the majority of our time in New Orleans, and then we'll come over, we'll meet you for dinner in Pass Christian, or we'll go to the wedding, but we're staying in New Orleans. Some people did stay in New Orleans. And like clockwork, as soon as somebody comes over and goes to Pass Christian, they're like, are you kidding me? It's so beautiful, and it's so just relaxed. And it's a lot of New Orleans people that have places there or moved over there. So I don't want to paint it as like LA or New York, but I would say it's a little more progressive than when you start heading into the backwoods,
Is there like a sort of quaint main street? Is there a center of things?
Yeah, for sure. And in fact, the coffee shop there is owned by an interracial gay couple, and there's a line out the door every day. It's right on the beach, and it's also a bookstore that is you have to look it up. And if you're ever in New Orleans, I can't recommend enough to head over and just check the area out. It's so beautiful.
Oh, what a nice hot tip.
Do you feel like over the course of your life, like having been there when you were little, has it become like sort of this more progressive, more interesting place? Or did it always have that?
Well, I mean, I'm sure it's become more progressive as I've gotten older, just because, things just...
Yeah, that's the wheel of time.
Yeah. But I think it was always an interesting place to go. I mean, any friends of mine I brought up or girlfriends over the years, it's just... I just grew up on boats and, in the back of pickup trucks. And I was talking on some podcast about water skiing in the swamps, and people were like, no way, with alligators? And I was like, yeah. And then I got off that podcast and I reached out to my brother and I said, we water skied in swamps, right? And he was like, yeah. I was like, okay, people are telling me I'm lying. And he was like, no, that's where we water skied,
Yeah.
So
are there airboats down there? Or is that?
Got to.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, I not necessarily surrounding my town, but I would just the general Gulf Coast and swamp areas.
Yeah.
Have those.
Oh, fun.
How often would you lay eyes on an actual alligator when you were out on the boat?
I never saw any when I was water skiing.
Gotcha. If you'd seen one, would that have been the end of it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I was scared of sharks. I remember going out into the ocean with my cousins, and one of them threw me off the boat and yelled shark, which is always a fun joke. But and the boat is so much higher, you can't pull yourself out of the water. I really think I was walking on water, but I don't know if it even really crossed my mind, because I think I saw the signs in the swamps that said, beware of alligators. And I think because I was a kid, I just took it for that. Like, okay, well, I'll be aware of those.
Yeah. That's all it takes. Then that's all it takes.
But I think I was more scared of sharks. But where you can see alligators, where I've seen the most alligators, is on the drive to the New Orleans airport coming from Mississippi, dead on the side of the highway.
Wow. And just roadkill dead, like hit by a car dead?
Yeah. Like massive alligators dead.
Huh.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That seems like something you'd want to get off the side of the road pretty quickly, just for tourism, tourism level.
Yeah.
Or it raises awareness.
Yeah. Be aware.
Yeah. And now we're going to take a quick break to hear from one of our sponsors.
This episode of Family Trips is supported by the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder.
From muddy jungle paths to snowy trails to rolling sand dunes, the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder has the capability to take you to some of the most epic destinations on Earth.
And we're excited to once again partner with Nissan because, as our listeners know, this podcast, Family Trips, is occasionally a podcast about trips and about the joy of having adventures and exploring new places and making memories.
And there's no better vehicle for chasing bigger, better, and more exciting adventures than the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder. With 7 drive modes, the Pathfinder is available. Intelligent 4-wheel drive is built for even the most epic journeys.
And it even has up to 6,000 pounds of towing capacity, so you can bring the fun with you.
But Nissan also knows that it's not just about where you go. In a Pathfinder, the real fun comes from getting there.
Very well said, Pashi. Whether getting there is a new physical place or just the end of an amazing story told by one of our guests.
That's why we're excited to partner with Nissan to celebrate adventurers everywhere.
So thanks again to Nissan for supporting Family Trips and for the reminder to chase bigger, better, more exciting adventures and enjoy the ride along the way. Learn more at nissanusa.com.
Intelligent 4-wheel drive cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions. Towing capacity varies by configuration. See Nissan Towing Guide and Owner's Manual for additional information. Always secure cargo.
Here we go.
So were most of your trips then back to Mississippi? Like when you were living in Houston, did you take other family vacations?
No, my stepfather wasn't really into into traveling. So yeah, we just mainly went to New Orleans and Pasquistan, and then my grandmother, my father's mother, and my father would come get us from Pasquistan and then bring us up to the Jackson area.
Did you feel as though you were being taken from your favorite place when you had to go from Pasquistan to Jackson?
I definitely. It's so interesting. I'm so used to traveling, obviously, for work. And when people are like, "Are you excited to go to blah blah blah? Are you excited to?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." I'm going to do a gig. I'm not like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to St. Louis tomorrow." But I still have that feeling that I had as a child when I crossed. It's called the Bay Bridge, and as soon as I'm getting on the Bay Bridge to cross over Pasquistan, heart and soul lights up beyond belief. And when I leave, I have this sinking feeling of, God, cannot wait to go back. And I had that for sure. I used to cry every time I left Pasquistan. But I was also excited to go see my grandmother and my father, even though it was, my grandmother worked at a gift shop at the Hilton Hotel and rented Avis rent-a-cars. And so my brother and I would just play in her gift shop and take everything that we wanted.
That's nice.
Yep. And well, she encouraged us to. And then my father, it was, we were always happy to see him. He just didn't have a lot of money, and he lived in just kind of weird, sketchy areas. And his table was a folding card table with loose change because he worked at a pizza restaurant and didn't have a bed, just had sheets and a pillow on the floor and had guns lying around. And it was just that kind of thing, you know. He had pistols and knives in his cowboy boots, and that was our vacation, was hanging out at pizza restaurant.
Were any of the half siblings around in those times, or they came later?
They came later.
Okay.
Yeah, they came, I think, when I was around 12 or something. And that's when there was, you know, his wife came into the picture and wasn't, you know, not great memories.
And then you were turning into a rocker who was smoking cigarettes and like you were close to that on the cusp.
Yeah.
Do you think, because your dad would come and pick you up and he'd bring you to Jackson, and so he knows he's getting his kids, he knows he's bringing them. Do you think that he tried a little bit to clean up before you got there? Like what you saw, do you think it had actually been a little bit worse? Like, do you think that maybe he was like, I should put the guns in the shoes?
Yeah, I don't think there was any thought about anything whatsoever. We just went to see him, and then we would play like, you know, Pac-Man and asteroids at the pizza restaurant that he worked at, and then we went back to his place. And you know, my brother, I don't remember this, but my brother was like, he's endlessly amused that, you know, these neighbors had come over to see if we wanted to go. I can't remember if it was squirrel or raccoon hunting. And my brother was like, our father isn't home right now. We have to wait and ask him. But it was like, we're not actually interested in, in coon hunting.
Yeah.
It was really just visiting people that we loved. And I think as far as we knew, we were having a great summer, you know?
Yeah.
And so how many days so your summer was in Mississippi, and you would go visit your dad for how long of the summer? Was it just a couple days or a week?
Well, I think we would start, like, I think we'd go to New Orleans for like maybe a week, and then probably Pass Christian for like 2 to 3 weeks. And then we'd go up to Jackson and Hattiesburg, which is actually where my father lived. My grandmother was in Jackson. And he would mainly, oh boy, he would come visit us at our grandmother's house, but sometimes he would just be staying in a motel and we would go visit him at a motel. He also said he was involved with the Mississippi Mafia. I don't know what was going on, but I think we were in Jackson and Hattiesburg probably a week or two.
Do you think he told you the mafia thing to show off, or do you think he just thought you'd find it interesting, or do you think he was just making it up?
Well, he didn't tell me about the Mississippi Mafia until when that time he visited me in Virginia. The next morning after he had surprised me at my show, he had taken me to IHOP for breakfast, and we were sitting there talking, and that's when he filled me in on his involvement in the Mississippi Mafia in the 70s. And he said, you know, I don't know if you remember, but I carried a lot of guns and I can't remember how he described it, but he was always like up to something. You know what I mean? Like, but I don't think anything was really going on. And he had a CB in his car, and he was always talking to truckers. And it seemed like my father, for a while, also worked as a security guard at a motel. And I think that when there was weird behavior at the motel, he would call the cops, and there would be like a bust that would happen. And as an adult, after sitting at breakfast with him at IHOP when he was telling me about his Mississippi Mafia days, I kind of added up that maybe he thought he was a little more involved with like stuff
Right.
than
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so it was just kind of
What was when you went up to see him? Like, what was your mom's vibe with you guys going up? Like, what was their relationship later in life? Was she like, "All right, you've got him for a week," or did she give you guys a big speech about like, don't touch any of the guns in his boots or anything?
I don't even know if she, it was the 70s. I don't feel like people were as, my parents weren't as in tune with, I think my mother and my stepfather were just like, bye-bye. And,
Yeah.
and had no idea what was going on at his place. But my mother never really talked about my father. I think that they met in college in Mississippi, and my father and my uncle were friends, and my uncle introduced my father to my mother, and I'm pretty sure my mother got pregnant out of wedlock and then married my father, and then they split up when I was 6 months. And so I don't know if she had too much information on him. You know what I mean?
It is funny that after a certain point of time, she could ask you, "What's that guy like?" Like at some point you passed him.
Emily, I think, kind of always in love with my mother. It just like lit up whenever he talked about her.
Was your mother still alive when you did One Mississippi, when you did the show about, because she passed away?
Yeah. She had died a couple of years before. And in fact, I landed back in LA. I got a voicemail that my father had died.
Oh, wow.
My.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume, based on the amount of pride it seems both you and your extended family have about the area, people must have been so excited that you did that show.
Yeah. I just wanted to show, I know all of the cliche bad stuff about the South and Mississippi, and I'm well aware of it in the state and area's history and the current state. However, I did have a very magical time in New Orleans and Mississippi, and my family are as flawed as every other family. But what I'm most proud of is that they didn't have to move to a big city to accept me, or have an openness, which I find more impressive than if you move off and you meet people on the coasts, West Coast and East Coast, and you come back and you go, yeah, I have some gay friends, or I have some, Black friends, or whatever it is. I feel very lucky, and I wanted to present my experience. A lot of people, after they saw my show, they said that they were waiting for my big coming out moment on the show. But I wanted to show there, it wasn't hard for me to come out to my family.
Right.
It was just,
that's nice.
I wanted to show my version of Mississippi, especially in the first season. The second season, I wanted to go into more of the political and social issues, but I wanted to set it up the first season with the good that I experienced.
Have you taken the boys back there? Do they?
Yeah, they've been, I think, probably 15 times now.
That's great. And do they look forward to it?
They love it so much. And yeah, we go all the time. We actually just got back. We were there 2 weeks ago. It's really nice. And I got some award in Jackson. I had gone there with my stepfather and my brother to receive the award. And we were walking after dinner down some street in downtown Jackson, and some guy got up from his table and ran out of the restaurant and chased me down the sidewalk and thanked me for shining a light on the state in positive ways, because I always feel bad for people that are in those areas that don't represent what people think of.
Yeah. It's so easy to just stereotype it and broad brush it. And it's obviously it's so nuanced and there's so many different kinds of people and they're everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's rough stuff and racism in other states too.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah,
New
of course.
York and California and
Yep.
Illinois but as soon as I say I'm from Mississippi, people are like, oh,
Yeah.
what was that like? Or like, what was it like being gay, being gay and from Mississippi? What is your family? And I'm like, my family hosted the biggest gay wedding probably ever in Mississippi.
Yeah. So step off, big boy.
Where's your wife from?
New York and California.
Gotcha. And does she love it as well?
She loves it. And when we first, I tell this story in my HBO special, but when we first met and I told her I was from Mississippi, she was like, Mississippi? She said, I picture people barefoot there. And I was like, oh my gosh. I said, I get it. And yes, people run around barefoot, but they have job. My family is civilized. They, whatever, just like other people's families. And then when Stephanie was coming out to meet my family, everybody rented one of those huge, like 16 passenger vans, and they all piled in it and drove from Mississippi to New Orleans. They spent the afternoon in the French Quarter, walking around, hanging out, killing time until Stephanie's flight arrived. And then, you can drink in your car there and you can have open. Yeah. Okay. So they brought a cooler in the van and we're in the French Quarter. And I said, hey, oh my gosh, Stephanie's plane is landing soon. We got to wrap it up and go to the airport. So everybody gets back in the van and we drive to the airport. I drove to the airport. I was sober. And I pull up to right outside baggage claim. And I said, okay, stay here. I'm going to go in, get Stephanie, and I will meet you right out here. And they were like, all right. I go in, I get Stephanie. I'm so excited to see her. It's, we've been together. It's our first year together. She's about to meet my family. My family's so excited to meet her. We walk out and we're just like looking at each other. And she goes, is that your family? And I look over and they are right where we parked, but they had pulled the cooler out on the sidewalk and they had taken their shoes off because we had been walking around the French Quarter all day. So they're barefoot going, whoop, and just like 15 family members going nuts, screaming with a cooler. And I was like, oh my God, yes, that is my family.
It's really great. I also think that, I'm hoping that when Stephanie saw that, she's like, I don't know why I ever looked down my nose at not having shoes on. These people are having the time of their life.
Oh my God. Stephanie is like, look, she has her issues with, she is as far left as you can get. Yeah. But as open and accepting and loving as my family is, they certainly, they're not far left by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
And there have been conversations where, not this past Easter, but the Easter before, everybody was sitting up until late, talking and drinking and getting into every political and social issue. It's 11 o'clock at night. I'm sitting there going, oh my God, I am not going to get into any of this. And I could see Stephanie getting irritated because if somebody does not fully get on board and understand these views that she clearly understands and feels, I can see it escalating. I said to her, for better or worse, it's not going to be awkward. But if you want to leave, we can leave. But if you're okay and sleep on this, nobody's going to bat an eye. Nobody's holding a grudge. You know what I mean? but she definitely feels like she loves that town so much. She loves my family. They love her. I just think that you probably, in mixed company, no matter where you are, at 11 o'clock, having drinks.
Yeah, might not be the time to come to a
might not.
general
Is it
agreement.
the best feeling? Because my wife has this with our kids, but is it the best feeling that your kids love the place you love?
Yes. And I talk about it all the time, my gratitude, because, Stephanie and I jokingly call each other country mouse and city mouse.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty city mouse too, but I've got a lot of country mouse in me. And I just love that my kids devour it when we go there. And that I can see it in their eyes, and I'm seeing it all over again when we arrive. We went to New Orleans for my cousin's wedding, and my son was like, and then we're going to go to Pass Christian, right? And I said, well, not this trip. He couldn't comprehend. We're just right there. Why would we? And I said, well, the whole family's in New Orleans for the weekend. Why would we go to Pass Christian? They love it so, so much.
That's great. Yeah, my wife grew up in New Mexico. Kids love New Mexico. She would spend summers on Martha's Vineyard, which our kids do. They love Martha's Vineyard. And they've never been to a place I ever lived.
They've been to New Hampshire, huh?
Sure, they drove through it once, I think, on the way. Yeah.
Barely.
And so do you wish that they were more connected to where you're from?
The nice thing is our parents are close enough to drive down and see us here. And just having 3 kids, it's easier to have home games with your parents than take them on the road. One day I would like
one day.
To,
They're only 8, 6, and almost 3. You'll get around to it. You'll get around to it, Sue.
Yeah,
I mean,
one day.
You live pretty close to New Hampshire, right?
Yeah, we do. Yeah,
pretty astute, Tig.
You've
pretty
seen some maps.
Astute.
You've seen some maps. I have some plans.
What does your wife think of New Hampshire?
I think it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably the best way to describe it. I think she thought it was going to be quainter, like that it was I think that she thought of our...
She thought it was a Pass Christian.
Yeah, she thought it was Robert Frosty, like, where's the little downtown? And I love our hometown, but it is, wouldn't you say, posh? It's more suburbs.
Yeah, I mean, it has like its little old part of town with like the really old buildings, the town hall, the library, that section of town, but it's not like that's a good little pedestrian area to
it's
sort of
not
walk
like
through.
We don't have like the coffee shop that's also a bookstore.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we love it. I love it.
I love it too.
Yeah.
This has been wonderful, Tig, and we are now going to ask. Oh, I have a real quick question about your podcast. I don't remember if this is. I saw you went on Colbert, and you were talking about Strike Force 5, and you said that there's 5 hosts, and you said 3 of them were handsome, and you didn't name which ones. I don't want you to name all 3, but am I one of the 3 handsome?
I mean, have you seen your face? I was sitting here looking at both of you going, well, look, I mean, you both got a handsome face.
Oh, thanks. Sorry. Good.
Yeah.
It's nice to hear.
I know. When I made that joke, I thought, I mean, there was a fleeting moment where I thought, is this rude, or will I hurt feelings, or will people
it's great. The egos and those 5 men, you had to know you were going to blow up little parts of their brains.
But it was really expertly delivered. So that was what I mean, obviously I had to go. I get some validation, but
of course.
it stuck with him.
All right. Posh is going to ask you some questions.
All right. Tig, you can only pick one of these. Is your ideal vacation relaxing, adventurous, or educational?
Well, as a person with a 7th grade education, I would say that I like to relax.
Yeah, let's not start educating now.
No.
What is your favorite means of transportation? Train, plane, automobile, boat, bike, walking, something else?
Water skis while
Water
gators
skis?
snap.
Gator skiing?
I mean, I walk every day. I think when I'm on vacation, I do enjoy renting a boat.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my favorites.
Can you drive a boat? Are you like from? Yeah, okay.
Not only can I drive a boat, I can park a boat. Okay,
That's the hard part.
That's the country mouse in me. But I can also drive a motorcycle. I can drive and back up a truck with a trailer on the back. If you think that's easy, it's not.
Yeah.
It is for country mouse, though.
Yeah.
Right.
My fiance is an equestrian, and she's got like a 3-horse trailer, and I don't even like moving her truck to the other side of the street if there's street cleaning, but she hooks up that trailer and drives to Montana, and it's just like,
can
okay,
handle it.
Yeah, I cannot. If you could take a vacation with any family, alive or dead, real or fictional, other than your own family, what family would you like to take a family vacation with?
Vacation with dead people.
Well,
you could
when they're alive. I don't think you want to go when they're
they're
like,
not. Yeah,
there's 6 boxes and me on this vacation. Like,
this is going to sound weird.
Hmm?
I am still very close with my first girlfriend, and I'm very close with her 84-year-old parents and her siblings. And in fact, my wife and kids and I also go visit them in Ohio in the summers and stay with her parents. And when I was younger, my dream was like to make enough money to take her parents on their dream vacation, which was to go to Ireland, which they've already done. So I'm like, but they're so fun and they're so funny, and I love them all so much, and our families connect so deeply with them that I think that it would be. I love going to see them in Ohio, but I would love to actually go someplace and explore with them, especially her parents in their 80s now. Like, I just think it would be so fun to do that with Max and Finn.
That's great. That's an answer that actually feels achievable.
Yeah.
And
instead of people are like Bart Simpson.
I'll go with The Simpsons.
Well, it seems achievable, but as the years tick by, I'm like, oh God, we're like 83, 80, something like 84 now.
Yeah.
And it's getting tricky. So that's how we go to Ohio.
Yeah. But to get away, I can see the benefit of getting away from the trappings of home. Like when you're home, you're still going to do laundry. You're still going to I think that's a great answer. If you had to be stranded on a desert island with one member of your family, who would it be?
Oh my gosh. My immediate family with Stephanie and Max and Finn?
Or extended family. Just a member of your family. If you consider them part of your family. I guess just a friend doesn't count, but Stephanie counts.
No offense to Stephanie or Finn, because they are absolutely delightful and remarkable travelers. But my son, Max, reminds me of myself in ways as a child, where I was always looking for some way to live off the land, or, like discover dinosaur bones or follow a creek or river really far back. And he just has that in him, you know, where when I take him on a hike, he brings a canteen and a compass and a bunch of snacks. And he's, in case we get trapped somewhere. So to picture Max on a deserted island, I would love to see what he imagined, and the way he would try to make it like we were in danger every second, and telling me to come get under the shade of the tree, and do I think we can eat these berries? And I can't even imagine what he would be thinking of on a deserted island.
Excellent.
Now I want it. So
yeah, really. Now this is the achievable dream for you.
Is your home? Would you consider Pass Christian your hometown?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the question is, would you recommend Pass Christian as a vacation destination? You've pretty much already answered that.
I feel like, that's almost maybe just the theme of this.
I would say yes, but there's really only one hotel there.
Yeah.
Over the Bay Bridge is a town called Bay St. Louis, and Pass Christian is pretty sleepy. Like, it's got a few restaurants and a few shops and the coffee shop and just the beautiful sleepy beach. But Bay St. Louis has antique stores and ice cream parlors and, rooftop bars that overlook the ocean, and like live bands playing, and just a lot going on. So I would say, no offense to Pass Christian, but if you're looking to vacation, Bay St. Louis is so quaint and beautiful and has so many, it's exactly what you're talking about as far as the main strip, the main street. And it's so beautiful and has so many shops.
Yeah.
You should look it up. Google Bay St. Louis and Google Pass Christian.
It's rare that in one of these conversations I'm actually like, oh, I'd like to actually go stay there. Like I'll go stay in Tacoma. But this is ringing some good bells for me.
This has been a real reverse Tacoma. I would say Tacoma of all our places we've had
I feel like
guests.
our Tacoma guests also were not suggesting that you go to Tacoma.
No, that's what I say. Like Tacoma, even from people who came from Tacoma, has not done well on the podcast.
Yeah. Although I do think it's probably beautiful being in the Pacific Northwest. But anyhow, back to this. Seth has our final questions.
Tig, have you been to the Grand Canyon?
I have been by there.
Could you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I didn't do a trip to the Grand Canyon. I've been to like the Canyonlands in Utah and stuff, and I want to take my kids to the Grand Canyon. And my mother hung upside down on a railing into the Grand Canyon. So there's your answer, all things Grand Canyon.
So wait, you weren't there when she hung upside? Okay.
I almost didn't make it into this world.
Oh, this was before you were born?
Yeah.
And was she just a daredevil who just wanted to hang over the edge?
She was wild.
And this was a story she told in her later years to let her kids know what a wild child she was?
Well, there is not a normal story about my mother. So that was like just, she hung upside down in the canyon, just like,
I feel like we've really, at the very tail end of a podcast, we realized that we've just left this completely unmined. We barely talked about your mother.
Oh.
Talk about old guns in his boots. He got plenty of time.
Old guns.
And then we're like, you're literally, she hung over the Grand Canyon. And that was like the most normal thing she ever did.
old Pasquale Notaro.
This has been a delight. Everybody, Tig Notaro's special Hello Again, available to stream now on Prime Video. Tig, it was just the best to see you again.
It was the best to see you. And if I can also encourage the people to listen to my podcast, Handsome, with Fortune Feimster and Mae Martin, it is just only nonstop ridiculousness.
How many have you done? How long have you guys been doing it?
I don't know, since maybe August, something like that.
All right.
What about you?
It's we were about the same, right? Well, I think we started in June, July. It's a blast. We get the right people to talk to. It's a blast.
Yeah. Well, you guys should submit. We have people submit video questions, and so you don't even have to spend any time with us. You can just be like, asking us a question and then go about your life.
You'll be getting a question from us very soon. Give our love to May and Fortune. And thanks so much, Tig.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.